My 11-year-old granddaughter left her tablet at my house. This is what I found on it. If Grandpa says no, tell him you won't visit anymore. Make yourself cry. My daughter's voice, coaching her own children to manipulate me out of everything I own. They thought I was just a lonely old man, too grief-stricken to notice. They were wrong, but before I could expose them, I had to make sure they walked right into the trap. It started 8 months ago when my wife Margaret passed away. Soon after, my grandchildren Emma and Tyler started visiting every Sunday. Said they wanted to keep Grandpa company. That was sweet, until I noticed they always brought the same manila folder. Every week, the same script. Grandma would want us to have the house someday, Grandpa. It's what families do. I found my daughter Vanessa's car parked around the corner one Sunday. She never came inside, just waited while her children delivered the lines. The documents weren't just for the house. They wanted the cottage, my pension, my investments, everything I'd built with Margaret over 40 years. But I didn't know how deep it went, not until Emma left her tablet behind. The tablet was wedged between the couch cushions, still warm. I should have just called Vanessa, told her. Emma left it behind. Instead, I opened it. A folder labeled Practice Sessions. 5 weeks of recordings. My daughter's voice, coaching my grandchildren like actors in a play. I listened to 5 weeks of manipulation, scripts, rehearsals, line readings. But the worst part wasn't the coaching. It was hearing my 9-year-old grandson ask if he was being a good boy for lying to me. And then I saw the calendar. Sunday, 3 days away. Final push. Get signature. They'd scheduled me like a closing. I listened to the last recording in Margaret's study, her reading chair. The room still smelled like her hand cream. That's when I remembered the envelope. She'd given it to me 2 weeks before she died. Pressed it into my hand while Vanessa was downstairs making tea. Don't open this unless Vanessa shows you who she really is, she said. I'm hoping you never have to. I'd kept it sealed for 8 months. That night, I tore it open. The first line told me everything Margaret had known for years. The letter was 3 pages. Her handwriting, still strong despite the illness. I'm sorry you're reading this. It means I was right about her. She'd restructured everything. The house, the cottage, the investments, all held in a trust I didn't know existed. With a clause Margaret had written herself, a family court judge protecting her husband from her own daughter. I read the clause twice. Then I called Harold Mensa. Harold arrived at 9 the next morning. He'd known Margaret for 40 years, law school classmates. He'd drafted their first will when Vanessa was still in diapers. He read the trust documents twice without speaking. Then he set them down and looked at me. This is airtight, Gerald. Margaret knew exactly what she was doing. The anti-coercion clause. He tapped the page. If any family member tries to get assets through manipulation or coercion, whether directly or through others, the assets redirect automatically. Educational trust for the grandchildren. Independent board. Vanessa and Derek can't touch it. Margaret wrote that herself? Every word. Harold's voice was quiet. She came to me 3 years ago, said she hoped she was wrong, said she'd rather look paranoid than leave you unprotected. Margaret did this while she was dying. For me, 3 years. Margaret had seen this coming while I was still believing Sunday dinners meant something. While I was still thinking my daughter loved me, I showed Harold the recordings. By the 4th one, he'd stopped taking notes. Just sat there, jaw tight, shaking his head. The 5th recording was from Derek's home office. Bookshelves behind him. Architectural drawings pinned to a corkboard. He was explaining the timeline to Vanessa. Once he signs, we file for permits within 30 days. Break ground by spring. The units will sell before they're finished. I paused the video. Zoomed in on the corkboard. Townhomes, 8 units. The address printed at the bottom was mine. That's dated, Harold said, March. 3 months before Margaret died. The plans existed while my wife was still fighting, while she was still in that hospital bed, hoping for more time. They'd been waiting for her to die so they could start construction. If Vanessa had gotten my signature before I found that tablet, I'd have lost everything. The house, the cottage. 40 years of Margaret's planning gone in one afternoon. Harold pulled up the bank records on his laptop. He'd requested them on my behalf earlier that week. Found it, he said. The mortgage payoff request. Submitted through your online banking portal. The IP address traces back to Vanessa's home network. I remembered that day. October. Vanessa had come over to help me sort through Margaret's medical bills. said I looked overwhelmed, said she'd handled the computer stuff while I made tea. I'd been grateful. I'd hugged her before she left. She'd logged into my life while I made her tea. I'd thanked her for helping. Harold closed the laptop. What do you want to do, Gerald? I want them to come Sunday. I want witnesses present. I want Vanessa to hear those recordings played back in front of people whose opinions she actually cares about. Your brother? Frank and Patricia. They'll come if I ask. Harold nodded. I know a child psychologist, Adora Nwosu. Given what those children have been put through, someone should be there to support them when this comes out. Emma's 11. Tyler's 9. They didn't choose this. No, they didn't. But they're going to remember Sunday for the rest of their lives. How we handle it matters. I thought about Emma's face when she delivered her lines. The way her eyes never quite met mine. The slight tremor in her voice that Vanessa probably mistook for good acting. She hated doing it. I'd seen that now. I just hadn't wanted to believe what I was seeing. Call Dr. Nwosu, I said. Harold was already reaching for his phone. This is Elder Vengeance, where the quiet ones always have the last word. If you're watching this and you've ever been underestimated by your own family, hit that subscribe button right now. Because when I played those recordings in front of everyone Vanessa had spent years trying to impress, her whole world collapsed in under 10 minutes. Here's how Sunday went down. Sunday came. Harold, Frank, Patricia, and Dr. Nwosu were already inside when Vanessa's silver SUV pulled up at 4:15. I watched through the window. Derek was driving. He checked his phone before getting out, probably confirming the showing he had scheduled for Monday, the one he'd never make it to. Vanessa emerged from the passenger side, smoothing her designer blouse. New, expensive, bought with money she was already spending in her head. My money. Then the back doors opened. Tyler bounded out first. 9 years old, bright orange jacket, running toward the house without looking back. Still innocent enough to think this was just another Sunday. Emma was slower. She stood by the car, clutching her tablet against her chest. A different tablet. They'd bought her a new one. Probably told her the old one was broken. Probably didn't mention that Grandpa had it now. Vanessa said something sharp, gestured toward the house. Emma didn't move. Vanessa's hand landed on Emma's shoulder. Not gentle. Steering. The way you'd move furniture. Emma walked toward my front door like she was approaching a test she knew she'd fail. What Vanessa didn't know was that Margaret had seen her clearly for 20 years. Margaret had been a family court judge. 30 years of watching families destroy themselves. Entitled children who viewed their parents as obstacles. Spouses who enabled the worst impulses. Grandchildren caught in the middle, used as tools. She knew every move before they made it. She'd made sure we wouldn't end like them. The doorbell rang. I straightened Margaret's photograph on the mantel, touched the frame once. 43 years of marriage looking back at me. Then, I went to answer the door. Vanessa stopped in the doorway when she saw Frank and Patricia. What are they doing here? I invited them. I stepped aside to let the children through. Sunday dinner, family together. Derek's eyes moved across the room, taking inventory. Harold by the window. Dr. Nwosu near the hallway. Frank and Patricia on the couch. His jaw tightened. Something was wrong. He could feel it. Who are these people? Old friends. They knew Margaret. Vanessa's smile flickered. She was calculating, trying to figure out if this changed the plan or just complicated it, deciding whether to abort or push forward. She pushed forward. Of course she did. She'd come too far to stop now. She nudged Tyler forward. He walked to the center of the room, pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His script. I'd never seen him use a physical copy before. Vanessa must have drilled him harder this week. Final push. Get signature. Grandpa? His voice was thin. We've been thinking about Grandma a lot, about what she would have wanted. I sat down in my chair. Go on. She always said family takes care of family, and we think she'd want us to have the house someday so we can remember her. I looked at Emma. She stood by the door clutching her new tablet, not reading from anything. She knew her lines by heart. 5 weeks of practice will do that. Emma? I said gently. Do you want to add something? Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at Vanessa, waiting for permission, waiting for the cue. Tell him, Vanessa said. Emma's voice was barely audible. If you really loved Grandma, you'd sign the papers. That's what families do. The room was silent. I let the silence stretch. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Frank shifted on the couch. Patricia's hand found his. Derek glanced at the door. measuring the distance. I turned to Vanessa. Is that everything? She blinked. What do you mean? The pitch. Is that the whole thing? Or is there more? Fear crossed her face. Then calculation. Then something she probably thought looked like hurt. 3 masks in 2 seconds. I'd never seen them so clearly before. Dad, I don't know what you're implying, but I pulled out my phone, opened the first audio file. Vanessa's voice filled the room. Okay, Tyler, let's practice again. Remember, if Grandpa hesitates, you look sad, really sad. Can you do that for Mommy? Good. Now, what do you say if he asks questions? Tyler's recorded voice, small and uncertain. I say Grandma would want this. Perfect. And Emma, when he looks at you, what's your line? Emma's voice flat and rehearsed. If you really loved Grandma, you'd sign. I stopped the recording. Tyler looked confused. Emma's face had gone white. Derek stood. We're leaving. The recordings are already with Harold's office, I said. I didn't raise my voice. And the police? Leaving won't change what happens next. Derek looked at the door. At Harold. At me. He sat back down. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought they'd shake. I played the second recording. Derek's voice this time. Confident. Casual. Once he signs, we file for permits within 30 days. Break ground by spring. The units will sell before they're finished. 8 townhomes, babe. That's our retirement right there. Vanessa's recorded laugh. He has no idea. No idea at all. I stopped it. Patricia had her hand over her mouth. Frank was staring at Vanessa like he'd never seen her before. I looked at Vanessa. Her mask was cracking, but I wasn't done. The third recording was the one that would end her. I pressed play. Vanessa's voice, sharp with impatience. Tyler, you need to be more convincing. If Grandpa doesn't sign, tell him you won't love him anymore. Tell him you won't visit. Make him believe it. But I do love Grandpa, Tyler's small voice said. That doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting him to sign. Can you do that for Mommy? Can you be a good boy? Silence in the recording. Then Tyler's voice, defeated. Yes, Mommy. I set the phone down. Vanessa's face had collapsed. The mask was gone. What remained was something desperate and cornered. You don't understand, Dad. We were trying to protect your legacy. You're getting older. You can't manage all of this alone. We were trying to... Harold stepped forward. He held the trust documents. Vanessa. His voice was calm but final. Your mother anticipated this. What? Margaret restructured the estate 3 years ago. Everything, the house, the cottage, the investments, is held in a protective trust. Nothing moves without my signature. And I don't work for you. Vanessa's mouth opened. Nothing came out. There's also an anti-coercion clause, Harold continued. If any family member attempts to obtain assets through manipulation, coercion, or by directing others to do so, the assets redirect automatically to an educational trust for your children, managed by an independent board. He set the documents on the coffee table. You can't touch it, Vanessa. You never could. And now, because of what you did, you never will. Derek grabbed the papers. Read them. His hands were shaking. This can't be legal. Your mother-in-law was a family court judge for 30 years, Harold said. She drafted this clause herself. I assure you, it will hold. The clause was bulletproof. Margaret had thought of everything. Every trick, every excuse, every way out. She'd blocked them all. Tyler started crying. Not the rehearsed tears, real ones. Confused, frightened sobs. Dr. Nwosu moved forward. She crouched down to his level. Her voice was soft. Tyler, Emma, would you like to come with me to the kitchen? I think the grown-ups need to talk, and I'd like to get to know you both. Emma took Tyler's hand. She didn't look at her mother, didn't look at anyone except Dr. Nwosu. They disappeared down the hallway. Vanessa watched them go. The room went quiet. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence was heavier than any shouting match could have been. And in that silence, I watched the math hit her. She had coached her children to steal from me. She had used them as weapons. And because she did, those same children would now be provided for in a way she could never access, never control, never touch. The trust would pay for their education, their futures, everything they needed. And Vanessa wouldn't see a dime of it. Margaret's final gift. Protection for the innocent ones. I stood, walked to the chair where Emma had been sitting. I didn't look at Vanessa. I hope someday they forgive you, I said to the empty chair. I hope you're worthy of it. Then I walked out to the backyard. Margaret's garden was overgrown. I hadn't had the heart to tend it. I stood there until I heard car doors slam, an engine starting, gravel under tires. When I came back inside, only Frank and Patricia remained. Frank put his hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Within 3 weeks, it all collapsed. The bank referred Vanessa's unauthorized account access to federal investigators. Identity theft. Potential wire fraud. Vanessa's attorney called Harold twice trying to negotiate. Harold didn't return the calls. Derek's world fell apart even faster. Word travels in real estate. By the end of week 1, 2 major clients had pulled their contracts. By week 2, his development partner had dissolved their LLC. The architectural drawings for my address were quietly shredded. 8 townhomes that would never exist. Vanessa tried to contest the trust. Her attorney reviewed Margaret's documents for 3 days. Then he slid them back across the table and told her to drop the case. Margaret had blocked every exit. But here's the thing that kept me up at night. Emma hadn't spoken to me on her own. Not once since Sunday. Dr. Nuosu was meeting with both kids twice a week, helping them understand what they'd been dragged into. She told me Emma was making progress. But progress isn't the same as forgiveness. I'd exposed her mother in front of everyone. I'd played recordings of her own rehearsed lines for a room full of adults. I'd done what I had to do. But Emma was 11 years old, and I was the one who'd made her world fall apart. Some nights, I sat in Margaret's study and wondered if I'd saved myself but lost her forever. The first supervised visit happened at Dr. Nuosu's office. Neutral ground, beige walls, soft chairs, the kind of room designed to feel safe. I brought photographs of Margaret, our wedding day, the cottage, a vacation in Maine where she'd laughed so hard she'd cried. Pictures I hadn't looked at in months because looking at them hurt too much. Emma asked questions about her grandmother, real questions, not scripted ones. What was her favorite food? Did she like animals? Was she strict? I answered everyone. Told her Margaret loved Italian food. That she'd wanted a dog, but we traveled too much. That she was strict about honesty, but soft about everything else. Tyler drew a picture of the cottage and gave it to me. Crooked lines, green crayon for the trees, blue for the lake, a yellow sun in the corner with a smiley face. I put it on my refrigerator that night. It's still there. The second visit, Emma apologized. She sat across from me in a small room with yellow walls and looked at her hands. Wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I leaned forward. Emma, look at me. She raised her eyes, red-rimmed, tired. She'd been carrying this for weeks. You were never the one who owed an apology. You understand that? What happened was not your fault. You were put in an impossible position by people who should have protected you. I don't blame you. I never did. Not for 1 second. She'd been taught to fake tears on command, coached to cry when it was useful, trained to perform grief like a party trick. These were the first real ones I'd seen in months, maybe longer. Dr. Nuosu handed her a tissue and let her cry. That was the beginning. 2 months later, I was sitting on the dock at the cottage when my phone rang. The lake was still. Late afternoon light on the water, the kind of quiet Margaret had always loved. I didn't recognize the number. Almost let it go to voicemail. Grandpa? Emma's voice, clear and nervous and young. Dr. Cree. Nuosu gave me permission to call you myself, she said, without anyone else on the line. She said I was ready. I set Margaret's letter aside. I'd been reading it again. I still found new things in it. Pieces of her voice I'd forgotten I needed to hear. I'm glad you called, Emma. I have a school project about family history. We're supposed to interview someone from an older generation about their life. She paused. I was wondering if I could interview you. About Grandma. About what she was like when she was young. The lake blurred for a moment. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. I'd like that very much. She let out a breath, like she'd been holding it. We talked for 20 minutes, made plans. She'd come to the cottage next month. I'd show her Margaret's garden. Tell her stories about her grandmother that didn't involve courtrooms or trusts or legal clauses. Stories about a woman who loved deeply and protected fiercely and never stopped believing that family meant something. After we hung up, I sat on the dock until the sun touched the trees. Margaret's voice in my memory. The way she laughed. The way she'd look at me across a room full of people like I was the only one worth seeing. Family isn't just the people you're given, it's the people you choose to keep. The ones who show up, the ones who grow. Margaret always said good bones matter more than fresh paint. I think she'd say the same about Emma. Margaret protected me from the grave, but here's what she couldn't plan for. Emma calling me on her own, asking about her grandmother. Choosing family over programming. That's not vengeance, that's hope. They scheduled me like a closing. Turns out, I was the one holding the pen. If you've ever been underestimated, I see you. Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone.